Welcome to Crimes Beyond Borders, where we'll bring you the most thrilling true crime stories every single day. If you're fascinated by mystery, intrigue, and the darker side of human nature, you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and join us as we unravel the most shocking and perplexing criminal cases from around the world. The story is about to begin after this intro.
From city streets to far off lands, mystery slipping through our hands. Crimes beyond borders they speak, voices strong but words are meek. Every story leaves a mark, whispers softly in the dark.
Our stories at first are made for ourselves, to comfort us, to help us sleep, and to learn. Along the way, they become a part of our journey, teaching us English and fueling our passion for true crime. So, listen carefully, and if you're about to sleep, close your eyes. Let's begin.
The Echo of Silence. The first time he planned a murder, it wasn't for the thrill. It wasn't even for revenge. It was for control. A way to wrestle back the power he felt had been siphoned from day by day, life demanding more than he ever had to give. He had watched and waited, observing the world with an intensity that might have been mistaken for admiration. But it was calculation. Pure, unblinking focus that stripped the world of its illusions and left him staring at the raw, unvarnished truth beneath. He went by the name Alex these days. Not that it mattered much. Names were transient. They clung only long enough to be shed when he moved on. The town he now called home was a mosaic of forgotten storefronts and half-hearted revitalization efforts. It had a pulse, weak but insistent, a backdrop of tired ambition that suited him perfectly. People here were used to looking past the stranger at the end of the bar or the quiet man in the back of the library, lost in an old book with frayed pages. His current fixation was her, Lara, 22, third-year student studying to be a physical therapist. He had watched her for months, seen her routine play out with the predictability that comes from the need for structure. She left her apartment every morning at exactly 7:15 a.m., earbuds snugly in place, and returned at sundown, her face flushed with the exhaustion of a day spent in endless lectures. There was something magnetic about her, a vibrancy that made him pause even when he tried not to. It wasn't affection or desire. No, it was curiosity, the kind that seeps into the mind like a dark promise. He knew every inch of her life. The cafe she frequented with friends, the bookstore where she lingered too long among the stacks of self-help guides and classic fiction, the park where she jogged on Sundays. Each location had been carefully studied, sketched out in his mind like blueprints. He was an architect of shadows, meticulously calculating where they stretched and how they swallowed the light. His movements mirrored the city's pulse, subtle, unnoticed, until the moment they erupted into violence. Weeks turned into months of observation, refining the timeline, each scenario dissected in the dim light of his small rented room. He pinned a map of the town on the wall, red threads stretching across pins that marked her path through her day. The routine was essential. Knowing it inside out was his armor against mistakes. He had once considered letting the curiosity slide into something different, something softer. But that thought had died as quickly as it arrived, a fleeting ghost drowned out by the sharper edge of his need for control. There would be no room for weakness, no space for doubt. He repeated this to himself like a mantra, a prayer to the darkness that fueled him. The night of reckoning. The night he chose was one of those rare, windless autumn evenings. The air, still and thick with the scent of wet leaves, seemed to pause in anticipation. Alex stood by the old bus shelter at the edge of town, a place forgotten by time and transit. It was 10 p.m. She would be returning from a late study group at the university, her footsteps tracing their familiar path toward her apartment, cutting through the small alley that split two rows of brick townhouses. He ran through the plan in his head one last time. Approach from behind, mask on, gloves tight against his skin. The knife, a slim, unadorned piece of sharpened steel, sat comfortably in his coat pocket. No frills, no theatrics, just clean, efficient work. He could hear his own heartbeat, a drumbeat that echoed in his ears as he watched the empty road, eyes adjusting to the shifting patches of light cast by the lone street lamp. He saw her before he heard her, the outline of her frame illuminated for an instant before disappearing back into shadow. She walked with a purpose, head down, fingers tapping messages on her phone. He moved, silent as a predator, closing the distance in measured steps. The silence around them roared, a vacuum swallowing the sounds of the world. It was just the two of them now. The attack was sudden, a flash of movement that shattered the calm. His arm snaked around her waist, the knife pressing cold and unforgiving against her side. She froze, the small sound of a gasp trapped in her throat as he whispered instructions that barely reached her ears over the thudding of her heart. The alley stretched out like a tunnel, endless, suffocating. Panic rippled through her, muscles tensing under his grip. But before she could act, he twisted, the knife finding its mark with a precision that spoke of practice. Her knees buckled, a sharp inhale as life surged through her veins, too fast, too late. He felt her fall against him, the weight of a life caught between breaths slipping away. He laid her down gently, a gesture not out of kindness but calculation. The scene mattered. It would tell a story, but not one of rage or recklessness. The marks, the placement, each detail would baffle those who would try to piece it together. A puzzle with no answer. The aftermath. He stepped back, wiping the blade clean with a practiced motion, tucking it back into his coat before slipping into the deeper dark of the alley. The streets were empty, the town oblivious to the loss it had just suffered. His pace quickened as he rounded the corner, disappearing into the warren of side streets that led back to his apartment. He took the long way, a route that would put distance between him and the scene, yet close enough to hear the first wail of sirens if they came too soon. The air in his room felt stifling when he returned. He peeled off the gloves, tossing them into a small fireproof bin, watching the material melt away. The knife followed. Its metal softened and warped in the heat until it was nothing but a misshapen relic of its purpose. He moved with the precision of ritual, each step practiced to the point of muscle memory. The room was silent, save for the faint crackle of the fire. Alex stood by the window, eyes tracing the distant glow of police lights as they smeared red and blue across the darkened skyline. His chest rose and fell with the measured calm of someone who had already moved on to the next step, the next plan. He was already fading into obscurity, a specter in the background of an unsolved case. The hours dragged, long stretches punctuated by the clamor of police and hushed conversations outside. He imagined the scene, how they'd find the questions that would spiral out into the night and beyond. The city's murmurs reached him, faint and inconsequential. They were trying to make sense of the senseless, to solve a puzzle that had been engineered to mock them. And he, the orchestrator, stood apart, untouched and unknowable. By the time the first glimmers of dawn stretched across the horizon, Alex felt the familiar pull of weariness. But as he sat down, listening to the dying embers, he found the hollow within him undisturbed. The void persisted, bottomless and vast. Control had been taken, reclaimed, and yet the yearning for more lingered, a whisper promising that this wouldn't be the last.
The story has come to an end, but stay relaxed. If you feel yourself drifting off to sleep, just let the video play and enjoy the soothing music in the background. Let it guide you gently into rest. We'll be here, bringing you more stories every night. Sleep well, and see you tomorrow at 8 p.m.
Whispers, cities asleep, mystery in the air, it seeps. Flickering lamps dimly glow, secrets hidden where few will go. In the half-light truth begins to show, unseen forces pull and tow. Windows shut, curtains drawn tight, lonely figures melt in the night. Echoes fade out of sight, one falls.